All right, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and I've been going over the PowerPoint presentations for Murachs, JavaScript, and jQuery 3rd edition for the AWD, Application and Web Development 1000 Web Technologies class. I am up to Chapter 7 of 18, and this chapter is on, it's a relatively short chapter on working with links, images, and timers. Much of the information that's shown in here shows you how to use JavaScript to do something, like create an image rollover or whatever. There's absolutely nothing wrong with doing it that way, but much of the stuff that's shown in here, although it's still used in thousands if not millions of websites, is considered more old school. And what you'll start to see when we get into the next section, Chapter 8, is how you can replace a lot of JavaScript with most times a very little bit of jQuery. So we've got, looks like 3 applied objectives and 3 knowledge objectives. So let's get started. Our applied objectives, use JavaScript to cancel the default action of an event. And typically what you'll do with something like that is you can set it up so that if you click a hyperlink, that rather than going to the link, you stay right where you are. All right. Second, preload images for an application when the images aren't automatically loaded with the web page. 3, use 1 and interval timers in your JavaScript applications. Those are our 3 applied, our 3 knowledge. Describe the need for cross-browser compatible functionality or methods that prevent the default action of an event. Describe the use of images and preloaded images in applications like image swaps and slideshows. Describe the set timeout, clear timeout, set interval, and clear interval timer methods. All right. So, common HTML elements that have default actions associated with them. Some of them are shown here. Quite often with other things that are not shown here. For example, a BR tag, a line break tag. All right. If you click on that kind of an element, nothing happens. And nothing will happen to these elements either unless a JavaScript event handler has been attached. So there is no default action for most events. However, when a user clicks on some elements of a web page, in fact, these are the ones that will have a default action. Although these default actions usually work the way you want, you may occasionally need to cancel them. All right, again, like I mentioned, you may want to set this up so if you click on a hyperlink, nothing happens, as an example. Now remember that when an event occurs, an event object is created. The object contains information about the event that occurred. It also provides methods that let you control the behavior of the event. If you want to cancel the default action, all right, then you have to put in some code. All right, there's an example right there in the first example. That's DOM compliant code right there that cancels the default action of an event. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, pre-IE8, you had to do it this way. All right. Now, if you are forced, for lack of better words, by whatever company you're working for, to be able to handle any and all browsers, including older versions of IE, you'll have to put both of these event handlers in. To do that, you can combine them like this, where you check basically here, and most, this is most browsers right here, and this is IE. Now, I would reverse this, and actually this is the one for IE, and this is the one for IE. So what you're doing in here is you're checking to see, and if it's not an event, then do the IE stuff, etc. in here too. So modern browsers send an event object to the event handler that's handling the event, and they also provide a DOM compliant PreventDefault method when necessary. When you call this, it prevents the default action from occurring. Again, older versions of IE store the event object in the global window.event property. All right. So to ensure cross-compatibility between browsers, you need to provide a way to hold both of these. Fortunate or unfortunate, but that's the way that it is. All right. In JavaScript applications that load an image in response to a user event, the image itself is not loaded into the browser until the JavaScript code changes the source attribute of the image tag. Now, if you've got a large image or a slow connection or a very detailed, intricate image, this can cause a delay of a few seconds before the image is able to appear in inside of the browser. To solve this kind of problem, you can do what's called preloading images. That way, the application can load the images even before the browser event occurs. This means that the browser can display the images without any kind of noticeable delay. All right, it may result in a little longer delay when the page is loaded, but once it's loaded, there's not a problem. It's usually a better user experience, okay, also called a UX. So if we look at the code here, okay, what you can see is, as it says, it's how to preload all images referenced by the href attributes of an A tag. So again, I don't know why they're doing it like this, because we'd want to use the $sign, but they did it like this. Oh, I'm sorry, they did it by tag name. It's not by ID. All right. So we're going through here, and basically we're setting it up so that we are preloading the images. Okay. Now we want to create a swap application here, so when we click on any one of these thumbnails, the bigger image shows down here. This is a common type of JavaScript application. All right. Here, the main image is swapped whenever the user clicks on one of the smaller thumbnail images. All right. So, no idea if we can make this work or not. Haven't been having the best of luck, but we'll try it anyway. Again, in my humble opinion, this is a great way to learn this stuff. I mean, we are copying in other people's code, but then we're looking at it and trying to make changes, etc., and that's a good way to learn. So we'll change this to image swap application. We'll change this to image swap CSS. And we'll change this to image swap.js, which we haven't created either one of those yet, but that's fine. We'll do that in just a moment. Get rid of this register stuff that was here. All right. So for our CSS, it looks like it's just a single line. I can manually code this in. li display inline. So this will become image swap dot CSS. All right. And so we've got that. So that is image swap dot CSS, which we're referring to as image swap dot CSS. This let's save as image swap dot HTML. Okay, so those are both done. And then let's add our CSS, which is shown on page 209 in the book and on one of the next. So I've got this in there. All right. Rest. Okay. All right, that should be it. All right, now the problem that we're going to have is I don't have the images, so I'll have to bring those in just a second. But before I do that, let's save this as image swap.js. Okay, so that's done. So I need these images here. So I need an images folder with deer, hero, bison, and catch and release, or release. All right. So how am I going to do that? Well, I've got those images, but I want the ones now for Chapter 7. Oh, I would have thought they would have been in there. Study slides, test banks, short. Where are those case studies? No. They have to be in here. That's the register. Doggone it. Well, let's do this. We'll let the system find it for us. So I'm going to come in here, and for example, I'm going to type in bison. See if that's in here. No match. That's not good. So I don't know where those images are. Well, there's one. Hero, launch. There's release. There's, which one do I need? I need release, deer, hero, and bison. I've got a gear, not a deer. There's hero. I don't see a bison. So I'm going to bring in these four. All right. Copy those. I'm going to go back to, this is my desktop images folder. Paste that in. So again, dusk, gear, hero, and release. Dusk. I've got release, so this will become dusk. Got release, I've got dusk. Gear and hero. Hero is there, that's good, so this will become gear. As always, I don't have a flaming clue as to whether or not this is going to work. Click on an image to enlarge. Well, it's showing the big one, that's good. Oh, let's see. I don't have a thumbnails. So I need those little thumbnails. Brother. Chapter 18, so doggone it. I've got those, but I don't have the thumbnail, so I'm not going to be able to show you any more of that. I apologize. So let's talk about what's going on there instead. Okay. So this is the swap part of the application as shown in your textbook on page 209. In the onload event handler that you see right here, the first three statements that are here get the objects for the UL element, and that's the image list. They also get the H2 element for the caption and the image element that displays for the enlarged image. These objects are nodes in the DOM. The fourth element then creates an array of the anchor elements within the image list and saves it to a variable called image links. Then we've got a for loop that starts by preloading the images for us. We do want to make sure someplace in here, over here, we are doing the prevent default. Again, most often when you do the prevent default, the reason that you usually are doing this is because what you want to do is you want to keep an event from happening, such as clicking on, you're canceling the default action for the event, such as you want to make sure that when you click on a hyperlink, nothing happens. All right? Now, quite often when you work with this stuff, you end up using timers. All right? A timer lets you execute a function after a specified period of time has elapsed. Timers are provided by web browsers rather than the DOM. They're often useful in DOM scripting applications such as slideshows that we'll look at in just a minute, so we can tell it, to switch the slide every 5 seconds, for example. So when you work with this stuff and you work with a timer and you do a set timeout, that's a function that is called only once. So it creates a timer to be called once. So, I liken it to the olden days of before we had snooze buttons on alarms, when you had the old wind-up alarm, and when it went off, you'd push the button and it would turn it off. There was no snooze button like you have today. It was one and done. That's like a set timeout. But if you wake up before the alarm goes off and you decide that you can turn the alarm off, then rather than a set timeout, you get a clear timeout. All right? On the other hand, when you work with intervals, that's like having a snooze button. That's like saying, okay, I set the alarm for 5. I hit the snooze button, it goes off again 10 minutes later. I hit the snooze button, it goes off again 10 minutes later. All right, so I can have it work at intervals. So this I can call repeatedly. And when I'm done, I can do a clear interval. All right? So notice here, a new version is available, etc. This will start in 5 minutes. So set timeout creates a timer that calls the specified function once after the specified delay. Clear timeout cancels the timer that was created with the set timeout method. Set interval creates a timer that calls a function repeatedly each time the interval has elapsed. And you can cancel the timer with a clear interval. You can't modify an interval timer, but you can cancel it and then create a new one. So the last thing that's shown in the chapter here, and I'm not going to run through it, is a slideshow. All right, so the idea behind this, and it's on pages 214 through 216, it's a slideshow that requires the use of an interval timer. When the application starts, it displays a new caption and a new image every 2 seconds. Now, if we look at the HTML here, we'll see that there's 4 anchor elements coded within a UL element. The href for each one of these provides the location of the images in the slideshow. And there's a title attribute which provides a caption for each slide. Now, to keep this application simple, the author provided no controls for moving through the slideshow manually. The JavaScript is shown on page 216, and it's fairly elegant because there's not much to it. The onload event handler starts by declaring variables that contain the nodes for the UL element, the H2, the caption, the H2 for the caption, and the image element for the slideshow. Then the get elements by tag name is used to create an array of name links. At this point, the onload event handler starts the slideshow. So what ends up happening here is we create an interval timer with a function that's embedded in the first parameter and 2000 in here. There it is. And that 2000 means do it every 2 seconds. Okay? That pretty much is it for the chapter. Later they have you go in and enhance it with start and pause buttons. All right. So that is it now for section 1 of our book. When we get to the next section, section 2 of our book, I just want to show you this very quickly. Let's do this. Let me close a bunch of these. So in our book, we have now gone through section 1. All right? And let me go find the book. So that would be probably web design, but I don't know. There it is. So we have now gone through section 1 of the book. We did an introduction to web development, which was very similar to what we did in the HTML and CSS book, except this was more JavaScript heavy or intensive, whatever you want to call it. Then we did the getting started with JavaScript, the essential JavaScript elements, how to work with JavaScript objects, functions and events, how to test and debug a JavaScript application, how to script the DOM with JavaScript, and we just finished how to work with links and images and timers. Now, next we will go through section 2, which as you can see is 5 chapters, and it's all on jQuery. So I'll be back with that shortly.